Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Today we'll be going over the Dante Managed API and how you can utilize the API to do all sorts of fun things and building new things for your customers. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get started here. If you have any questions during this whole presentation, please feel to enter them as you think of them in the Q&A panel. We may or may not answer them right away, but we will do our best to get to as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. We'll also be available to stay a little bit later if we can today, but we're planning to go the full hour today if the questions lead us up to that. So please go ahead and enter those as much as you can, and we'll do our best to get to as much as we can. All right, to get started, I wanted to just introduce who I am and who my colleague on the call here is. My name is Jim Kidwell, and I am the Audinate Principal Product Marketing Manager here. I cover all of our software applications. That includes Dante Director, Dante Domain Manager, and a variety of other products, including Dante Controller. If you haven't downloaded the new one, please go out and check it out. It's got a cool new dark UI that you can use in dark spaces. So a lot of cool stuff available. Vincent, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Jim. Hello, everyone. I'm Vincent Nicholas. So I am with the technical sales engineers team, and I live in France. So I work for the EMEA region. My job at Audinate is to build knowledge and to share knowledge. So if you go to a trade show in Europe, you will probably see me at the Audinate booth. So yeah, I'm really glad to be here today.
All right. Thank you, Vincent. All right, moving on. So to get started, we just want to do a little bit of level set, make sure that we are all speaking the same language and that we all understand why we're here. So what exactly is an API? An API is an application program interface, and it is basically the way that you can communicate with different types of applications. When we build APIs here, it is to communicate with specific applications in specific ways. With a lot of the Audinate products, we have specific APIs that allow you to do certain things, and a lot of these are open and available for you to use free of charge if you have that product. So in a lot of instances, you'll see people will be building APIs to do specific calls in specific ways, build different types of interfaces with different systems and so forth. So APIs can be very handy. So we'll be going into a lot of detail about the API itself. Quick question. Are we going to be sharing the recording afterwards? Yes, we definitely will be sharing the recording afterwards. If you're not able to stay the entire time, we will be sending out a link to this and it will be shared on YouTube. So you'll be able to watch this whenever you want to. So what is the Managed API and how can you access it? So the Managed API is available only if you have two separate products from Audinate. One is Dante Director and the other is Dante Domain Manager. They both use the same Managed API that allow you to do a number of different things within your Dante ecosystem. That can be channel switching, that can be gaining specific types of information from your systems, but this is a free interface. So if you or your customers have already invested in Dante Director or Dante Domain Manager, it's very easy to build interfaces for them. So if you're, say, for example, if you're an integrator and you want to build a custom interface that sits in a conference room to change channels in between like a desktop input and a speaker that's running on the ceiling or things like that. You can have multiple different ways of doing channel switching on a tablet or another type of interface that you may build. So these are the ways that you can access it, and it is, again, free of charge. So if you're an integrator or something like that, you can even charge a little bit extra to say, hey, we're going to build this custom interface for you. So offers you new options to sell different types of things to your customers. And if you're an end user, like if you're an IT or AV manager, you can build something for the guy in the room who may not have a full understanding of the AV system to do some very powerful things with just quick, simple button pushes. So again, stepping back and saying, what is the difference between unmanaged and managed Dante networks? An unmanaged Dante network is kind of the default style that you have. Dante was designed to be very, very easy. So you as an end user didn't necessarily have to know everything about your network. You can just plug everything in together, fire up Dante controller, route signals between A and B, and everything should just work. So in this case, all of the devices themselves communicate their media and clock and information in between each other very, very easily. The control system is set up utilizing what is look like the little laptop here. That's Dante controller, and Dante controller sets everything up, and then the devices themselves remember all of their routing and everything like that. On the right, when you're looking at a managed system, there is an actual application running at all times that understands how everything is routed in between all of the different locations. It understands how everything's functioning and everything. It is the central point of communication and contact. This offers you a lot of different benefits. It offers you the ability to segment your network into multiple different logical groupings. So if you have a very, very large LAN, you can break that up into multiple smaller, different virtualized LANs where you have just those devices speaking to each other. It also allows you a little bit more oversight where you can check on what's going on with your network from a variety of ways. But in this instance, where we're talking about the managed API, it offers you a central point to where all those managed API calls go. It's the centralized manager that says, okay, you've asked me to do this. I'm going to go tell those devices over there to do that. So it is the point that relays all of the API call information and does all of the work for you. So we've set it up so it's a lot easier, and the API calls that you're using are going to be a lot easier to use than if you were to try to program all of the devices themselves, which is just unmanageable. So in this instance, no pun intended, in this instance, the manager is the centralized interface. So this is just another way of looking at it here, and how everything fits together. So if you're working in an organization, here on the left, you see two different groupings of devices. This is what often a lot of the benefits that the Dante Domain Manager or Dante Director gives you. It allows you to sequester these two separate rooms into virtualized groupings to where they aren't necessarily routed in between rooms inadvertently. You have all of those devices just communicating with themselves. All of the management layer happens at the Dante Director and Dante Domain Manager level. And then what you see here on to the right of that, where the GraphQL API sits, that is the Dante Managed API. That is what handles all of the communication between Dante Domain Manager and any other types of devices and or systems that are running off to the right there. So you can, as I said, build dashboards in particular where you're extracting specific types of data out of Dante Domain Manager. You know, what devices are up? Where are they routed? Are there any errors happening? What's going on with that system? Do you want to know what's going on? You can pull all of that information out of Dante Domain Manager. You can also create data visualizations. And as I've mentioned before, probably the primary benefit that a lot of people are going to get out of it is building simplified control user interfaces where people with no AV knowledge can go in and punch a button and do a lot of very fancy and complex channel switching in the background. So that is by far the most common use case, but it is not the only use case. So we've been talking a lot about the extension of control. Control is something that we value a lot here in the AV community. Control is something we've also already built in automatically. So we do have control interfaces that you can download already from our website, and this will require even less work from you. We've built them for AMX Harmon. We've also built a Crestron module that allows you to connect to Crestron systems and do work that way. We also have a BitFocus companion integration, which, as you may know, allows you to communicate very effectively with Stream Deck devices and easily build these, the cool little buttons that have little user interfaces on them on a standard, almost consumer grade piece of hardware. So it's something that is very easy to do, and even a guy like me who's not a programmer can easily build buttons and make things switch from place to place. Super easy. The other primary application for the Dante Managed API is integration of device monitoring. And for device monitoring, this can be something, for example, if you are an integrator who is also serving as a managed service provider, you can actually say, okay, I have multiple different sites that I'm working on, and I want to make sure that I understand what's going on all of those different sites. I'm going to set up API calls so they're reporting all into my specific centralized system. So if you want to build a specific centralized system, you can do that very easily. We have customers who we're working with, or partners who we're working with, like Domot and AVI SPL, who have built that into their managed service provider systems as well. So if you're looking at Symphony here in the lower right-hand side, that is the AVI SPL application that they've built for their MSP services. They can, you can acquire lots of information directly within their AVI SPL Symphony application. So it's kind of serving as a single pane of glass for IT service managers to monitor more things than even just the AV network. So if you're pulling everything into one specific location, this can be it for you as well. And if you want to build something like this, you can do that as well. So if you are an OEM or you are an integrator that has your specific type of application and you're interested in doing this, please reach out and contact us. We may be able to help you do that if it's something that you're interested in pursuing, and maybe even retailing off to other people. So moving on from here, I'm going to hand it off to Vincent so he can talk a little bit about GraphQL and why this has been chosen for the API.
Thank you, Jim. So I've seen in chat some questions about does this work with Extron or does this work with Splunk? So there is no integrations with Splunk or Extron to date, but as we are going to see during the demo and everything, you will see how you could like build a plugin, for example, for one of these platforms. So yeah. So why did we choose GraphQL as the API? So when you are building an API for your platform, you want two things, right? You want it to be secure and you want it to be easy to use. So that's what has driven us to choose GraphQL. So it's free to use. It's open source and developed by Meta. So the other alternative is REST. Maybe you have already heard about REST as an API. So me personally, I'm not a developer. I cannot say what is better between REST and GraphQL, but I know one of the big advantages of GraphQL is that it's self-descriptive. So what does it mean? We are going to see that in the demo, but keep in mind that you don't need to like have the documentation open in another tab while you are using the API, because the API is describing itself as you use it. Okay, so it was ideal for use case. You can go to the next one. So how do we implement it? So we have already started to get inside of it, but it uses a schema. So all the data that's available for you to use in your application, everything that's open to you, the API programmer, is described as a schema. So it has a very special hierarchy, and the data is structured so that it's easy to use and you know what to do. It's based on two things: queries. So you ask for the status of a variable, for example. In our case, is this device online? Is this device clocked well, for example? And mutations. So what can mutations be in our case? The first one that comes to mind is change the subscription of this channel of this device. So what channel does it use? All the data goes through HTTP and even HTTPS, because we use certificate to secure the connection. So anything that can do HTTP can communicate with Dante Director or Dante Domain Manager through the API. Okay. The fourth point is also quite important. So Dante Domain Manager or Dante Director aggregates all the data. So it takes care for you of communicating with the devices, discovering all the devices, and you have a single point of communication between your application and all the Dante device of the network. So this is a big plus. This is a big advantage for your plugin because all the Dante part, meaning the discovery and managing of all the devices, it's all taken care of by the manager. Okay, so this is the structure that we use, and voila. So if you want, we can go to the next slide, I think.
Okay, so where can you find out about all of this? Basically, you can download our user guide. It's free and open to everybody who wants to download this. You can go to this link here down below. I'll share it in the Q&A here in a little bit, so you can also grab it there. This is an easy way for you to get some basic descriptions of this. One thing that you can actually, if you're familiar with GraphQL, you can actually get a lot of the descriptions of what you can do in the GraphQL schema itself. So if I'm using the term correctly, it's a self-described or self-documented API. So you'll get access to everything that we've made public. Now, your question might be like, what can I do and what can I get? If you've ever trialed or used Dante Director, pretty much anything that you can see within Dante Director, you can use in the Dante Managed API. So if you want to do channel switches, if you want to do user management, add new users, remove users, things like that, a lot of that can be done directly using the API. Anything you see there is available pretty much. We're trying to make more and more of the functionality within the application available. So just look for that, and then as we update the product itself, more and more functions will become available in the API as well. All right, I'd like to take a step forward now and move on to our demo. So with this, I'm going to hand it off to Vincent.
Yeah, so sharing my screen now, and it's shared. So
Yep.
to give a little bit of context for this demo, what are we going to do, in what order, etc., etc. So we are going to use the API in two different environments. I would say the first demo will be rather high level. We won't see the belly of the beast. We're just going to use some buttons and prepare some basic interactions. And in the second demonstration, we'll really go inside the documentation of the API, and we'll see what the API calls are really made of. Okay. So still in the idea of giving you context, so I'm using Dante Director. So I assume a lot of you already know what Director is. So it's one of the two ways of doing Managed Dante, the other one being Dante Domain Manager. So I chose to show you Director today. I could have chosen DDM. It works with both. But a lot of the things that you can see in Director, the status of my devices, and also, for example, per device, changing the subscriptions, all of this can be automated and done with third-party applications thanks to the API. So that's why I chose Director to show it, because it's visual. And now we are going to try to do such a thing, meaning changing subscriptions with Bitfocus Companion. Okay, so maybe some of you know about Companion. It's free to use, and there are a lot of libraries that you can use from multiple OEMs and manufacturers. So it's really used in the industry, in the AV industry. You can see a lot of manufacturers actually putting in some plugins, and we have our own. So it's called Ordinate Dante. So in my case, I've already put it on my companion, so I won't add it. But yeah, you can find it in the library of plugins in Companion. Okay, so the first step when you have an API, most of you must know that, is that you need to give access, because of course we want security. So in Director, it will be the same. In DDM, you can generate API keys. So I've taken the time to generate one for Companion. Also on this API key page, I'm showing you there is a little bit of a tutorial on how to set up your first GraphQL collection between Postman and Director. So this can be useful if you are a Director user. So today I'm doing a demo, so I won't use Postman, so you can get a little bit more value out of this, but keep in mind that there is a little explanation here if I'm going too fast or if you prefer using Postman. So free to you. So once you have your API keys, the things you need to do is to go back to Bitfocus. You input your API keys right there. Please don't use mine that I just show you and try to hack me, and input the host URL, okay? Then what are we going to do? So this is used to pilot stream decks. So maybe I should have started with it, but the goal here is to make subscriptions on our demo with a simple press of a button of a stream deck, okay? So if you remember my Dante Director zones that I have this demo of a studio, and there is a studio called Studio A. And in this studio, I have a SSL mixer, okay? And I want to do something really, really simple. I want to route audio from my mixer either to the main monitor or to an auxiliary monitor. So the way I'm doing this is I open in Dante controller my zone. So I want my mixer to output either through the auxiliary or to the main, okay? So I've prepared a little button that already does it thanks to the companion integration. So concretely what it does, so this is the web buttons. So I cannot show you the Stream Deck right now, so I simulate the Stream Deck on my web browser. So if I am pulling my my controller here and my web buttons here, this button is called Mixer to Auxiliary. And if I press it, subscription is being met. So it takes a little bit of time and it's green. Okay. So really simply, without clicking inside the Dante controller, I've done an API call. I have used Bitfocus to send an instruction. Okay. So this one was not really interesting because we didn't do it ourselves. So what I can propose you right now is to do another button that does the opposite, okay? So now we are sending our mixer signal to the auxiliary monitors. Let's do the opposite, okay? Let's create a new button, okay? And try sending audio from the mixer to the main monitoring, okay? So let's call it mixer to main monitor, okay? So I have a list of actions that I can link to this button. So let's check it out. So recently used, I use this one, subscribe Dante channel, but we can fetch it inside the folders. So this is the library of functions that we are using. And as you can see, it's really simple. So subscribe Dante channel, and then I'm done. So how does it work? He's asking me for a delay. So no delay, we want it to happen as fast as possible, right? So who is going to receive the signal? So in my case, it's the monitor. So I can research it, monitor. Okay, so let's say that the receive channel is my left channel of the main. So the transmit channel will be the left of the mixer, right? So I've done this once. Now I need the right channel. So I'm going to do the exact same. So that's why this shortcut is actually useful because you are going to be doing this a lot. So this time we want to send the main receptor will be the right and transmitter will be the right of the SSL mixer. And okay, I'm good to go. So what happens now if I go back to my buttons and I go simply like that and I click my new button. So it's doing kind of what I want. Okay, it's making 2 new subscriptions between my mixer and my main monitor. But the problem is it forgot to get rid of the old subscriptions. So maybe we can do a little bit better. So for the demo, I'm going to pretend that nothing happened and I'm going to change the button a bit. So how do we tell him that we want to actually delete a subscription? So the way we do that is we do exactly the same. We subscribe a channel, but this time the transmitting channel will put empty. Okay. So in order to clean things up and to clean the auxiliary, because we now want to put the mixer to the main, we set the auxiliary. We'll put known inside of this channel. Okay, we do this twice, one for the left and one for the right. So where is the saying, right? And I use empty. Okay. So let's test this out. If I go to my other tab right there and I try this again. Okay, so now it's doing what I want. It's breaking the subscriptions that pre-existed and it's building new ones. Now I have two buttons and I can switch between preset 1 and preset 2. I can switch my monitoring, okay? For example, in this really, really simple use case, okay? So with the press of a button, so I did only 4 actions on one macro, but you can imagine recalling a whole preset, okay? So this concludes the demo for Bitfocus Companion. If you have some questions, you can ask them in the Q&A section. I will go into a little bit more details right now, and I'll try to answer everything in the end, because I think we are going to be on time, so we can take our time. Okay, so for the second part of the demo, I'm using a GraphQL client. Okay, so one of the most known ones is Postman that we talk about in directory itself, and we make available a collection of API calls that you can try and use to improve, like to learn about the API. For this demo, I'm using Altair because Altair has a very convenient thing. Okay, remember how we talked about GraphQL is self-described. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So, okay, this is Altair. So the first thing I did is always the same. I create an environment and I give him my key and I give him the URL that I'm using, okay? And once I'm connected to this endpoint, I have access to docs. So this is where the documentation lies. It's when you are connected to the endpoint, the documentation appears on your software. And I can go through it. It's just a data structure. So I want to do a query. I see that I have different types of queries, okay? So in my case, oh, there is a query called domains. What does it do? What fields can I add to it? Okay, so it's telling me about the data structure that I need to query him in order for him to understand the language that I'm speaking, and he will try and answer, okay? So that's the idea. We build a dialogue. So I send him a data structures and he's sending me back data that I asked for in the specific fields. And it's not really about coding, it's really about the structure. So the syntax is a bit, you need to be really strict and not make mistakes with the syntax. But other than that, it's really self-descriptive, and what you see is what you get. So let's try to demonstrate that. So for my really first query, I've chosen something really simple. So query, this means I'm doing a query. I'm asking for the domains and the data structures of my domains. If I look at it, I can ask for ID, name, and a whole lot of other things. But the thing is, I only want a simple one for this time. So I'm asking GraphQL, my GraphQL API, can you give me the ID and the name of the domains that you see on my Dante Director domain, which is called Studio A. Okay, sending the request and I get an instantaneous answer. Okay, so he sees Studio A and he also sees all the rest of the domains that I have on my demo. So it's working as intended. I'm asking for him a data structures, and he answers with the data itself. So let's try to spice things up a little bit, because this does not give me a lot of information. So in this query that I've prepared for you, it's called domains detailed. Okay, so I'm asking for the status of the devices inside to have more information, to start, for example, building like a monitoring app type of thing. So let's see. If I'm sending this request, I have all the information that I asked. Okay, so in Studio A, I can see that the connectivity of my device is okay, but there is an error because there is an error in clocking. So that's basically what you would have seen inside of Director. You see, error in clocking, we find this error exactly here. So what I'm doing here is showing you the skeleton of what actually happens in the app. And all of this is available through the API. Okay, so now you are going to tell me, okay, this is fine, but I can fetch some information about what's happening on your devices, but now I want to change stuff. I want to do mutations like I did, like we did with Companion. So this is coming. So just to show you one last example before that, I prepared this query. So it's still a query, not a mutation. We won't change anything. Just to show you that we can add some variables, okay? So here I'm querying devices inside the domain, okay? And the domain ID is the following. So it's unreadable, of course, but where does this value come from? It comes from the request ID before. When I was asking for domains, it gave me the ID of this domain. So what I did was I read the documentation once again, and I asked him for how do I do ask for data structure of devices inside the domain? And I basically copied and paste what he told me. So here I'm asking for the devices, the ID of the devices, the name of the devices, and etc. etc. Okay, so what happened if I send this one? So it's telling me that in my domain, Studio A is finding my amplifiers, is finding all the channels of these amplifiers, if they are subscribed or not, and if they are subscribed to who, okay? So keep in mind that for Dante devices, it always works with RX channels. So this is Dante specific things, but it actually makes some sense. So we don't always know where our transmit channels go, but we always know if our reception channels are subscribed and who they are subscribed to, okay? So it always works like that. So we work with RX channels to know who we are getting information for. So that's why the subscribed devices appear on the RX channels, okay? So you see where I want to go with all of this. So when I know who's subscribed to who, I can now try my first mutation. So my mutation in the documentations. So I want to do a mutation. This is all the mutations that are available, okay, still directly on my application. So I want to do subscription. So it's called device RX channels subscription set. So I go to device channel subscription set. So where is it? And I look to what it is supposed to look like. So I'm supposed to give him in input the device and the channels that I want to subscribe, okay? So in this case, I'm telling him to this device, please give him the subscription of channels 1 and 2. So it's exactly the same thing as we did before. It's even simpler this time. So let me show you what it does. Okay, so start from scratch. I'm telling him, okay, to my device, input him the SSL mixer channels left and right. So if I send the request, it's telling me that it's okay. So we should see it appear in a moment. And it's all subscribing, and it should go green in a minute. And the same technique that we used, remember, in Companion, we can use the same to delete the subscription here. So It's exactly the same mutation, except this time the subscribe device and subscribe channels are empty. So here I have a little bit of a latency error. It's because, I don't know, maybe I have a problem with clocking at home. Oh no, it's good now. Okay, so now that it's good, let's delete it and conclude our demo with this last query. Okay, so this was really to show you what really happens under the hood. It's a little bit of a syntax nightmare, maybe, but it's not really hard to understand because things are described the way are described correctly. So it's just about data structures. So, yep. Do we have some questions, Jim? Maybe
Oh
about that?
yes, we have a whole slew of questions here, and I'd like to encourage everyone who's on the call who does have questions. Please enter them in the Q&A, and we'll try to serve those as a launching point, and hopefully we'll get to answer all of your questions while we're here. So here's a question from Sean, who asks, are we able to recall presets with Companion? So I'm not sure exactly which presets he's talking about, if those are like Dante controller presets or other types of things, but what do you think, Vincent?
Okay, so I'm still sharing my screen. So I think when he talks about presets, he's talking about the presets that you can load inside Dante controller. And when you're loading a preset, it remembers all the names of the devices, it remembers, etc., etc. So what I've just showed you, I showed you that you can recall subscription with the press of a button. So subscriptions are part of what makes a preset, okay? So you can recall subscriptions. You could also store in a preset um, information about clocking and everything. This takes a little bit more to do. For example, who's the preferred leader and stuff like that, but it's still possible, okay? Because remember, when I show you in the docs what's available, okay, we can have information, we can store information about a lot of stuff. For example, in the domains, we can know who's the clock master, what clocking group are we in. So it's possible to automate the recreation of a preset in Director. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Alan asks, does Dante Domain Manager and Dante Director have a perpetual license option? This would be useful to introduce Dante into high-end residential homes. I guess that's more of a licensing question for me. So right now, the way that we license Dante Director, it is a SaaS subscription. We are working to find other ways of selling that, both on invoice-based licensing for certain terms. But right now it is a month-to-month credit card purchase. For Dante Domain Manager, that one is currently sold on a term-based licensing. So while it is not perpetual, it is something that you can buy for 3 years at a time. So there are multiple ways that you can go about that, but right now there is no perpetual option. All right. The next question is from an anonymous attendee. It's for using the API, is Dante Domain Manager necessary or not? This attendee may have come in a little bit late, but yes, Dante Domain Manager or Dante Director is required. So you don't need both. You just need one or the other to serve as that central repository and that central interface for the API to communicate with. Here's one for you, Vincent. Timothy asks, is that a JSON output, and is it available in the standard output log from Dante Domain Manager or Dante Director?
Oh, so this one may be a little bit out of my league. So it looks like JSON. Absolutely. The data structure is JSON compatible, I guess. But it's I think I don't want to tell nonsense, but I think it's linked to the GraphQL data structure. It looks like JSON, but and no, it is not available in the standard output log from DDM or Dante Director.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now here's one that I think maybe we'll have a nuanced answer, and I'll let you answer it. It's, can subscriptions be made between devices in different domains?
Oh, this is a really interesting one. So um, in different domains. So as I was doing the demo, remember, I was in my little domain, which was called Studio A, okay? And all I was doing was making subscription in the same domain. If you have done a little bit of DDM in your career, you might remember that you're not supposed to share audio between domains, except if you put these devices inside a shared audio group. Okay, so that devices can exchange audio even though they are in different domains and even possibly in different subnets. Okay, so shared audio groups is still not available in Director. It's a DDM only feature. So I would have been limited by Director in this case of my demo if I wanted to do it. It's theoretically possible in um, in DDM. The thing is, you have first to set up your shared audio group. And then I think that you will be able to see the device from another domain as a virtual device, okay? And you will be able to make subscription from that virtual device to the devices in your other domain. So yeah, it is possible, but nowadays you need a DDM for that.
Okay. We burned through all of our questions a lot faster than I thought we had. If there are any more questions, we're happy to answer them. If not, that's okay too. And if you think of something after the event here, please feel free to email either of us directly. You can email me at my email address on the screen, or Vincent on the screen, and the email address on the screen as well. We're happy to answer your questions. I posted a number of links in the webinar chat, so if you'd like to check them out there, the link to the user guide is in the chat. Also, there's a link to the director page on our website. You can try Director free for 30 days, and that is an online service. We also have a web page up there that talks about how you can safely give your AV network access to the internet. So that is on that page, and you can download that fairly easily. Also, if you want to try Dante Domain Manager, we do still offer a free trial of that. That free trial is a 60-day trial, so that's quite a long trial. So hopefully you can get that tried out. There's also a link to Bitfocus Companion too. So Bitfocus, as I think we may have mentioned, is a free tool. It is easy to use with Stream Decks, and you can build buttons very, very easily. Okay, well, I think we've burnt through all of our questions. Once again, I'd like to thank all of the attendees for joining us today. We will be sending out a link in email today. Well, not today, probably soon, within a day or so. And it will be up on YouTube, so you can share this with your colleagues. Again, please feel free to contact us if you have any questions. Once again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone.